What is the most useless skill you learned in high school? How to take a test about taking a test. Similarly, how to write essays that, aside from proper grammar, have absolutely nothing in common with documents, communications and the real world. How to make myself feel overwhelmed by the simplest task and let it ruin my month. I learned I can stick a whole quarter up my nose. Only problem is that I can't get it out. Luckily I sneezed as I was walking to the nurse's office. I've never been more relieved to see a coin rolling down a hallway. A quarter? I can't even fit a penny. That's like how you can fit an entire light bulb in your mouth, but can't take it out. Hell. In biology class, I learned how to dissect a frog and identify its organs. It's a skill I've never needed since. You obviously don't know how to have a good time. His indiscretion has been noted. Has been taken off the guest list. Don't worry. Sweet. When is the next meeting again? I can't remember if it was the 21st or 22nd. You're a few days off. It's actually the 33rd. Correct. It's the 33rd of June. A licked gummy bear can stick to a ceiling for a decade if no one pulls it down. My buddy has his little sister check on it for us. Yes, we are that childish. I feel that. My dorm had 3 ceiling pickles last year, and it changed our lives forever. At our high school there were strings hanging from the ceiling above the stairs that lead to the art classrooms. Probably they used to hang art some time ago anyway. The empty water bottle, empty Coke can and a few other items my classmates put there as a joke are still hanging there, 8 years later. By now most people think it's art, I guess. I learned that I could stick a pencil up my nose and it would cause me to sneeze. I would do it so much that the teacher would get annoyed and tell me to leave the classroom or go to the nurse's office. Great way to get out of class for a few minutes. I memorized pi to like 20 places. I'm 42 years old and I have never ever used this in real life. It's kinda funny that so many people memorize pi. Even technical people don't usually need it past 5 or 6 digits in common usage, and in the cases that you do, you are definitely using a computer or calculator which stores the value anyway. Number file solved that 39 digits is sufficient to calculate on the scale of the universe with the precision of a hydrogen atom. Even technical people don't usually need it past 5 or 6 digits in common usage. I'm an engineer and I usually just approximate it to 3, unless I'm actually running analysis on something. 3 is close enough to know if you're in the ballpark or you need to go back. I'm a woodworker, and I find it absolutely adequate to approximate it to 3. 8. How to disassemble and assemble a ballpen within 10 seconds. I always thought people who could do that were so cool. Still do. John Wick breathing intensifies. Am I thinking of the wrong type of pen? 90% of the time ballpoints come apart by unscrewing the tip and taking out the ink cartridge point and removing the spring. Unless I'm getting whooshed hard here. Generally yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I've got the cap, unscrewed tip, sometimes a small metal fuselage for the tip of the ink stick, the actual ink stick, a spring, and sometimes the trigger button can come out. Disassembling and reassembling these components within 10 seconds is quite the feat. Never broke 11.8 myself. This and how to spin a pen around my fingers. SAT classes were super productive. In my microeconomics class I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 40 seconds. It has helped me with nothing in my real life. Did everyone learn that? Or were you just killing time by yourself? It wasn't required during class, but my friends and I would do it during group assignments, after we got the work done mostly. Trying to figure out how Rubik's Cube relates to microeconomics. You got a witty reply and a small pile of fake points. Pretty sure it's serving you well. Probably dissecting a novel. I'm all for a good book, but why do we need to read so far into things that we can determine if the author liked boxes or briefs? I'd argue that it gives you debating skills. I'd argue that you're a to-do head. I don't have good debating skills. It depends on what you are looking for. If you want to search for a bias or an intent, that is okay. My disdain is when the author writes a scene about a pretty straightforward thing and they make you search for meaning that the author did not have. Debate good handwriting means you had a good discussion. Poor handwriting means your essay needs more work. Charlotte Bronta seems like she's prefer briefs. I have the quadratic formula memorized, and I don't think I'll ever need that info for the rest of my life, since I work in human resources. But gun to my head, I could say it in a heartbeat. X equals b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We had to learn it as a song, so it would stick better. Songs do help the memory stick, for better or worse. I still remember the technical definition of an asset. An asset is future service potential or economic benefit, presently controlled as the result of a part transaction. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. I don't even remember what the formula was for. The fact that mitochondria were the powerhouse of the cell. In A levels you get told that what you spent 5 years learning is incorrect. Please elaborate, I'm listening. It's actually midichlorians, not mitochondria. He's fooling you. No, in physics class you learn the difference between force and energy. The midichlorian is the powerhouse of the force. Basically they are not the powerhouse of the cell. Or at least you can't say that, no matter how much your pre-programmed brain wants to. I mean, they make ATP, which powers most of the cell reactions, so is it really that inaccurate? I'd like a bit of clarification. A few classes were pretty useless in the grand scheme of things. Religion class was me pretty much sleeping. Art was fun, but not helpful. Gym class really could have been useful but wasn't. I'm in religion class right now. Can confirm, it is boring and completely unnecessary. Yeah, sitting through that in Catholic school was only good for the nap I needed to get through the day. I was lucky to have a religion teacher for 3 months that taught the anthropology side of religion and how it shapes cultures and societies historically. As you can see, it didn't last in our Catholic school. I spent years listening to math teachers tell me I wouldn't always have a calculator in my pocket. That was before we carried portals to the entirety of human knowledge in our pockets. So yeah. I use geometry, trig, and algebra all the time. I use algebra because I'm a programmer. The geometry and trig come in handy when I'm remodeling something, doing landscaping, or other things that require measurement in my home. I don't have all the formulas memorized, but I know how to look them up, pick the right one, and plug it into my smartphone calculator. My grade 10 teacher told me this. That was in 2006, the year smartphones came out. By the time I graduated, smartphones were becoming a norm. As I left the school I stopped her in the hall. About that never have a calculator in my pocket. You're the 4th person today. Yes, I'm wrong. Pure gold. We learned how to create authentic looking Byzantine scripts. I learned how to make fake old documents in middle school by pouring tea on the paper and baking it in the oven. Proper choice of desk on the first day. That business class we had was completely useless. And I own a business now. Everyone complains about not having business and other practical classes in HS. But I had them, and they were absolutely terrible. It's not practical to teach these things in one semester to HS students. You need more basic skills, and then you learn as you go. People in non-STEM majors complaining about learning math and STEM majors complaining about English class. You know, I'm a STEM major, and I think it's crazy when people complain about English and speech courses and such. Like, oh, you mean those classes that teach you how to research and communicate? Yeah, you'll never need that in life. Most people are not aware enough to realize that you were learning a lot more than what was literally in front of you. Most of what people actually learn in high school was what is the best way to find the information to solve this problem. This applies to STEM and English COM classes through research or by understanding how to take apart a problem to solve it. MLA formatting for papers. They kept saying you need to know it for college. Not a single paper I wrote in college used MLA, they all required APA. Also pretty much all the math I learned in high school I have never once used in the real world. Like dealing with imaginary numbers. How will that ever help me? Why couldn't I learn accounting and budgeting for a car or house? How to build CR and apply for loans? How to do my taxes? Even something as simple as making a resume and how to write a cover letter. I feel like I had to learn everything important in life on my own. Yes. This. And no one teaches you how to format your papers to APA, so then you have to Google it, and it's not that hard, but it's freaking annoying that I spent all of middle high school learning this, and then it's not the right one. So annoying. I actually learned this. We used APA in science, geography, religion, and history. Now I wished I learned Chicago style. In business school, just copy links to your sources at the end of the PPT. Computers. I graduated right before the internet became a thing, so all I learned didn't serve me for very long. I ended up having to take night courses after college, and still do when something important comes out. I took a computer class in the mid-80s. It was the first year our school had computers and the class was taught by the gym teacher for some reason. She knew nothing about computers and just read straight from the book which had mistakes. We were taught that RAM was read-only memory and ROM was random access memory, despite several people in the class pointing out the obvious acronymical inconsistency. And we had to answer it wrong on the test, because that's what we were taught. I spent the next 20 years in it, and can honestly say nothing I learned in that class had any value at all. Good on you for keeping up with technology. I feel like I'm being left in the dust since Windows 8. CPR. We had a mandatory 30-minute lesson on it. Thing was that they didn't tell us how to do it, instead opting to show us a VHS. This was in 2017 BTW older than me. That consisted of a middle-aged lady with the most generic voice you could ever hear giving basic instructions on how to perform CPR, then giving a demonstration for about 5 minutes. This sequence looped another 4 to 5 times before the video ended with the lady congratulating us for learning CPR. Oh, and did I mention that generic elevator music that made hold music sound like Bohemian Rhapsody played for the entire video? It was probably an outdated technique too. I had CPR in health class in the 90s, but apparently they don't do the mouth-to-mouth thing anymore. Anything involving a T83 graphing calculator. I learned how to program them outside of school, and how to play them in secret during school. I still have a T84 with Pokemon Red. How to have crushes that will never go anywhere. In my day we had junior high instead of middle school. Guys had to take shop. I took print shop with these 19th century manual presses. This was to prepare us for a trade. It's always kinda bothered me when people complain about learning useless skills in public school. I don't think everything you learn in high school is meant to be entirely relevant to your everyday life, but you're learning how to learn, even if it's something silly like Syncos or whatever. You need to learn organization, note-taking, whatever. All that being said, I gotta say German was the most useless skill I learned in high school. I didn't even learn much, and it would have been a lot more useful to take Spanish. Trigonometry is extremely useful if you get into any sort of technical career, and it's useful in other areas too. German helps you understand English grammar better. Learning all about nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive cases made English grammar seem so much more clear to me. Maybe Spanish would have been more immediately useful, but German was still nice. For that matter, German is an important country culturally, so knowing a bit about it seems appropriate. It's meant to build a foundation for anything you may want to pursue. That being said, I despise US public education for having such low standards of education. Turbo Pascal. It was obsolete before we even started learning it. I learned it too, but to be honest it helped me a lot in my computer science studies. The idea of decoding a problem into well-programming languages are fairly equal for all languages. So you don't need Turbo Pascal, but it really helps you to understand how to program. Having my phone in under my desk and texting T9 without looking. To create music by squeezing my hands. It sounds like farts, but it has pitches. I was coming to post this exact thing. Only difference is my hand farts are more squeaky. How to riffle shuffle a pack of cards, and how to solve a Rubik's Cube. How to convince women not to date me. Your personality did that naturally. Wasn't anything you needed to learn in high school. I'm aware. At the time I had zero self-esteem or social skills, and I was miserable and angry. Nobody wanted to be around me, and I didn't figure out why until college. I turned it around, though. Married with 2 kids. Not high school, but junior high school. In the 8th grade, square dancing was a mandatory thing in PE for 3 weeks. Yay, square dancing. Even as a 13-year-old I knew this was the most useless thing I was ever taught. Matching plaids, matching the seams and pockets. I spent weeks making a suit jacket that had a plaid pattern in home ec. Every step had to be approved by the teacher before I could move to the next step. I have never ever worn plaid since, nor have I wanted to make anything else that's plaid. I think I wore the jacket once, and my mother wore it maybe twice. But I can match a mean plaid. A+ all the way, baby. I'm gonna be honest, but dissecting a frog didn't teach me anything more about biology that I wouldn't have gotten from watching a video or looking at pictures. Knowing the powerhouse of the cell. To throw my money clip away from me and run. Predict which past paper the teacher was going to use for our mock exams. I'm old enough to have learned hot metal typesetting linotype in my print shop class. I learned how to be really good at memorizing things for standardized test. Problem is never once at my job have they given me a scantron. How to play hot cross buns on a recorder. I became nationally ranked in online Tetris freshman year. Factoring trinomials. I even specifically asked my math teacher if this is something we'd have to do in real life, and he was adamant that we would. What I didn't realize as a kid is I was asking a teacher. He had to do it in his real life every day. They have no idea what other people do during their jobs. Teaching isn't like most jobs. I work as a computer programmer and have never been presented with a trinomial.